Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In the small town of Caldwell, nestled between undulating hills and vast stretches of pine forest, the people have always prided themselves on their tight-knit community. Life moved at a slow pace, where everyone greeted one another by name, and the clamor of town gossip was as plentiful as the surrounding nature. But that calm veneer would soon be shattered, forever changing the lives of those who called Caldwell home. It was an ordinary Tuesday in early June, the sky a bright azure with wisps of cloud lazily drifting by. Children laughed as they played outside, their parents busily tending to gardens or preparing for the summer's upcoming county fair. But amid the familiar sounds of the suburban bliss, an unsettling air lingered, barely perceptible yet palpable. At 7:45 p.m., sirens echoed through the streets for the first time in years. They sliced through the stillness, heralding a scene that none could have anticipated. The body had been discovered in the woods just off a popular hiking trail. The victim was a local high school senior named Amanda Foster, a bright beacon in the town's fabric with dreams of studying environmental science. Her absence left a palpable void, one that could never be filled. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the news rippled through Caldwell like wildfire. Family members, classmates, and friends gathered, their faces drawn and pale as the chilling reality began to set in. A daughter was gone, a student lost, and at the heart of it all, a mystery loomed. What had happened in those tranquil woods? Why had something so horrific invaded their peaceful sanctuary? As darkness enveloped Caldwell, answers remained shrouded in uncertainty, and the manhunt for the truth was about to begin. The victim, Amanda Foster, wasn't just another name on the school's roster. She was a vibrant spirit, full of life and ambition. Teachers marveled at her inquisitive nature in the classroom, while friends admired her infectious laughter that often echoed through the hallways of Caldwell High. She was the epitome of youthful determination, a young woman passionate about safe environmental practices and sustainability, even starting a campus recycling initiative that had earned her accolades from the local community. Born and raised in Caldwell, Amanda had deep roots in the town. Her parents, Tom and Helen Foster, were pillars of the community, known for their involvement in local charities and volunteer work. Amanda, too, had inherited that sense of duty, frequently participating in fundraisers and community service events. That Tuesday, as she walked home from school, her thoughts danced between revising for final exams and working on a project for a summer environmental camp. The world was full of promise, and Amanda had more plans than time. Yet, underneath the surface of her cheerful demeanor, Amanda faced challenges that only a select few knew. She was battling the rise of anxiety, a silent struggle hidden behind her smiles and laughter. Late nights spent studying often turned into sleepless ones, compounded by the weight of expectations from both family and peers. In the days following her death, those close to Amanda found themselves unraveling threads of memories, moments they now wish they'd explored further. The vibrant laughter at the school assembly, shared ice cream cones beneath the sun, and even quiet moments by the river doing homework all served as haunting reminders of the girl they had lost too soon. As local police investigators meticulously pieced together Amanda's final hours, each new piece of information only deepened the heartbreak. In Caldwell, the shadows tightened. They were not just mourning a life taken, but were forced to reckon with the unsettling truth that even in the safest corners of their world. The crime scene. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the forest floor, turning the vibrant greens into dark palettes of obscurity. As detectives arrived at the scene, the air was thick with the mingled scent of damp earth and pine. The cacophony of insects buzzed in the background, an eerie soundtrack to the gruesome discovery that lay ahead. Caution tape flapped gently in the breeze, a stark contrast to the tranquility of the surroundings, marking off a space that transformed. Serene escape had transformed from a serene escape to a haunting tableau. Officers moved methodically, each trained to observe what the untrained eye could easily miss. As they stepped deeper into the undergrowth, the atmosphere shifted. Whispers of the trees seemed to hush, as if nature itself wanted to conceal the horror that had unfolded. There, amid the ferns and fallen branches, lay Amanda Foster, her body unnaturally still in the dappled sunlight that filtered through the canopy above. Detective Sarah Moreno knelt beside Amanda, her heart heavy with the gravity of the moment. The scene was chilling. Amanda's clothes were torn, and bruises marred her pale skin, painting a harrowing picture of the violence that had occurred. Immediately, Moreno noted the inconsistencies. This was not merely a death, but something far more sinister. Forensic teams documented every detail, capturing the scene with cameras before gently uncovering evidence. A silver necklaciate gift from her mother lay a few feet away, glinting in the light as if it could somehow tell the story of her last moments. Nearby, faint footprints were discernible in the loamy soil, perhaps belonging to her assailant, a clue that might eventually lead to justice. The sun began to sink below the horizon, and shadows crept deeper into the woods, erasing the last remnants of daylight. As the air turned cool, the gravity of the situation settled heavily in the detective's heart. They were faced not just with a case, but with the responsibility to seek justice for a vibrant life, extinguished too soon. Each piece of evidence gathered would be vital in a pursuit of truth that would echo through Caldwell, leaving no stone unturned in their quest to bring to light the darkness that had cursed their once idyllic town. The early investigation. As twilight descended upon Caldwell, the small police precinct hummed with activity. Detective Sarah Moreno, flanked by her partner, Officer Jake Turner, began the task of untangling the web of leads and clues left in the wake of Amanda's tragic death. The early hours of investigation had led to little clarity, but the urgency to discover the truth pressed heavy on their shoulders. It started with interview Severy friend, classmate, and teacher who had known Amanda was a potential source of information. The detectives understood that the waves of grief often accompanied helpful details buried in fond memories. They kicked off the investigation by speaking with Amanda's closest friends, gathering at the school library where they often found refuge from their studies. In soft, trembling voices, her friends recounted Amanda's routine in the days leading up to her death. They remembered her excitement for an upcoming summer camp and her laughter amidst the mundane school day. Yet they also recalled a recent change. Amanda had seemed anxious, distracted by an unsettling encounter just days prior. A boy distant and quiet, known to occasionally linger near the campus, had been seen watching her during lunch break. Though his name rarely surfaced during conversations, a shadow of discomfort settled over the group at the mention of him. As the sun's final rays slipped beneath the horizon, Moreno sought out Amanda's parents at their family home. The Foster's warmth stood in stark contrast to the cold heaviness in the air. Helen Foster, her eyes puffy from crying, clutched a framed picture of Amanda swimming in the ocean, radiant with happiness. Tom sat beside her, his jaw clenched tight, emotion brewing underneath the surface. In their grief, the couple shared with the detective stories of Amanda's aspirations, her dreams to further the fight for environmental justice. They mentioned the boy whom Amanda had unnervingly mentioned once or twice, a classmate named Kyle Tremont. He had a reputation around school for being overly forward, often crossing boundaries that made both students and teachers uneasy. The weight of their words hung heavy in the room, laying a foundation for the investigation. But how deep could that discomfort run? As the clock ticked into late hours of the night, the officers worked tirelessly in a race against time, piecing together the fragments of Amanda's life. They were on the cusp of something. Every conversation brought them closer to understanding the truth of what happened among the trees. But with rising stakes, they knew they faced a darkness they must confront head-on. The dead ends. It turned into an agonizing blur as the investigation into Amanda Foster's murder gained momentum. Yet the path toward resolution remained muddy and indistinct. Detective Sarah Moreno and Officer Jake Turner pored over evidence, but it felt as though every answer led to yet another question, a relentless cycle of frustration for the team. The initial leads seemed promising. They arranged for interviews with Kyle Tremont, the classmate whose presence had struck Amanda as unsettling. However, when they finally located him, Kyle's demeanor was shockingly passive. He appeared distraught, yet compliant, answering their questions with vague responses and a disconcerting air of detachment. I didn't have anything to do with it, he insisted, his eyes flitting away from their gaze. Despite his insistence, the detective sensed something profound lurking beneath his calm facade. There were whispers from other students that suggested Kyle had previously contacted Amanda via social media, messages that became increasingly possessive. Yet, when checked, the electronic trails either disappeared or lacked the incriminating content they sought. His abject denial and lack of emotional cues threw Moreno into disarray. Was he hiding something? Or was he simply another victim of circumstance? Time pressed on, and hope began to languish like the fallen leaves of autumn scattered around the precinct. Nearby woods had been scoured, but the forensics team had uncovered little beyond the immediate evidence by Amanda's body. Every potential witness they tracked down seemed to recede further into ambiguity. No one had seen or heard anything unusual that evening on the trail, just another ordinary night in Caldwell, itself cloaked in normalcy, while horror lay just beneath the surface. Frustration simmered as the detectives found themselves circling back to dead ends. The pressure intensified. The town's residents grew restless, lingering over whispered conversations and unresolved speculation. Every home felt burdened by the loss of Amanda, the questions hanging uncomfortably heavy in the air. Moreno and Turner had anticipated the case would unfold like a novel, but instead, they were twisting through a labyrinth of silence and disillusionment. Every night they returned to their makeshift war room, camping amongst pinboards adorned with photos and timelines. But more than anything, they sensed that something vital was slipping away. With each passing hour, they strove not only to seek justice for Amanda, but to pierce the veil of darkness that had wrapped around Caldwell, a darkness that seemed determined to swallow them whole, one dead end at a time. A break in the case. Amidst the swirling fog of frustration, hope flickered back to life on an overcast Wednesday morning. It was a day like any other when Detective Sarah Moreno received an unexpected call from an anonymous tip line set up by the police department. The voice on the other end was shaky but insistent, claiming to have witnessed something crucial the night Amanda was murdered. "Are you absolutely certain about what you saw?" Moreno pressed, her pulse quickening. After countless dead ends, she clung to the words, escaping the frantic cholera young man, who identified himself only as Jordan. In a dimly lit back alley, he explained how he had been out late with friends, returning from a nearby diner when he heard muffled shouts coming from the woods along the trail. Jordan described the sounds he heard distinctly, voices raised in anger, followed by a sharp cry that cut through the night air like a knife. Although he hadn't seen the confrontation directly, he recounted the dark figure that had emerged from the tree line. Moments later, his heart racing as he relayed the scene that followed a vehicle parked at the entrance to the trail. An unfamiliar car he'd never seen before. As quickly as it had begun, the commotion ceased, leaving only a blood-curdling silence. Sensing urgency, Moreno arranged to meet Jordan, whose identity remained under wraps due to his own fears. The meeting took place in a quiet corner of a coffee shop, where the hum of espresso machines masked their conversation. As Moreno listened intently, she documented every word. His recollection of tensions in the woods aligned perfectly with what they knew of Amanda's struggles. But it also opened up a broader narrative of struggles that might extend beyond a singular confrontation. Following his tip, Moreno and Turner delved deeper into the databases of local vehicles and potential suspects. They began tracing the registrations of cars parked in the area around that time, focusing on reports of questionable behavior or personalities within the community. It all pointed to a lead that had evaded them earlier. A nearby resident, someone known for his unsettling presence, had a record of harassment. His car, a dark sedan that had been hovering at the edge of town, matched the description provided by Jordan. With a renewed sense of purpose, Moreno felt the momentum shift. They still faced myriad questions, yet at last a thread of connection had been woven back into the fabric of Amanda's story. They resolved to bring the prospect of justice closer to light. As the detectives sped into action, they knew that this time it was not just another rumor. This was an opportunity to illuminate the darkness and uncover the truth buried within the shadows of Caldwell. The suspect. With the name of their potential suspect etched firmly in her mind, Detective Sarah Moreno set out for the home of Ethan Granger, a reclusive figure known to skirt the fringes of town. Granger's unsettling reputation had grown over years, filled with whispers and sidelong glances, reports of harassment towards women and dubious interactions with local youths. Moreno felt the weight of the case settling heavily on her shoulders. This was a name they had nearly bypassed, obscured by the sheer fog of Amanda's chaotic final days. Approaching the dilapidated structure, the sun struggled to pierce through the clouds, mirroring the mood of the detectives. The house bore the marks of neglect and trimmed hedges, peeling paint, and a porch that creaked ominously underfoot. A sense of dread washed over Moreno as she knocked, the sound echoing into the stillness. When the door cautiously creaked open, shadowed light spilled out, revealing Ethan. He was tall and gaunt, eyes darting nervously behind thick glasses. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice shaky as though he sensed the nature of the inquiry before they even began. Keeping her tone steady, Moreno introduced herself and requested to ask him questions regarding his whereabouts on the night Amanda Foster was killed. Granger eyed them curiously but quickly tempered some of his initial anxiety. His responses were overly rehearsed, overemphasized in what felt like a desperate attempt to put distance between himself and the young girl's tragic fate. Moments turned into tense minutes as they probed deep. Ethan maintained an alibi, claiming he was home alone, immersed in video games. But when asked about his car, the dark sedan parked near the forest, his unease was palpable. His body language shifted, eyes flickering to the side. If he knew anything, he was working hard to conceal it. Moreno pressed further. "We were informed you may have been seen nearby," she said, watching him closely. The subtle twitch in his jaw told her he had not been entirely honest. As the interrogation unfolded, he nervously fidgeted with a frayed cuff, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead. But it was the half-formed threat in his voice that sent chills down her spine. He muttered about people needing to mind their own business, and that things don't always end well when interests collide. The warning seeped through the air, suggesting a darker side to the supposed loner kind of menace that could conceal brutality behind a mask of solitude. After 30 tense minutes, Moreno and Turner left with a mixture of dread and determination. Everything about their encounter with Ethan Granger suggested a man who roamed close to the edge. His facade of normalcy beautifully crafted yet utterly hollow. Now, they had a name, a face they could scrutinize, and a lingering sense that the encounter held answers they had yet to decipher. The shadows of Caldwell were deepening, and as night fell again, the chase for justice became not just a matter of fact, but an unfolding drama wrapped in the mystery of a life cut too short. The trial. The courtroom buzzed with a tension that hung heavy in the air, a palpable mixture of hope and despair. It was a late fall morning when the trial of Ethan Granger finally began, an event that had drawn the attention of the whole town of Caldwell. Family and community members packed the benches, their faces a tapestry of resolve, grief, and unyielding support for Amanda Foster's vibrant life, extinguished far too soon. Detective Sarah Moreno sat in the front row, separating herself from family members who clung to one another for strength. She hadn't merely witnessed Amanda's story unfold, she had plunged into the darkness of it. And now, as the prosecution's opening statements began, the resolve that had fueled her work took form. This trial was not just about the pursuit of justice, but was also a tribute to Amanda's memory. The prosecutor laid out the case step by step, detailing the harrowing evidence. They recounted the discovery of Amanda's body, laying before the jury the emotionally charged photographs that painted a grim picture of violence and betrayal. Testimonies flowed like a river, painting a portrait of a girl loved and admired, who had been turned into a haunting statistic. When Ethan Granger took the stand, the room grew tense. He presented himself as withdrawn and reclusive, attempting to build an image of an innocent man caught in an unfortunate, strange world. Yet as the prosecutor began to piece together the tapestry of their evidence, Ethan's facade began to crack. They laid out the timeline of his activities the night of Amanda's murder, along with witness statements, and each punctuating word of the prosecutor felt like a nail being driven into his defense. The pivotal moment came when they unveiled the cell phone records linking Granger to Amanda just hours before her murder, a chilling discovery that sent shivers through the audience. The jury had begun to lean closer, eyes shifting from the prosecutor to Ethan, doubt painted starkly across their faces. Throughout the trial, Moreno could observe Amanda's parents struggle beneath the weight of every testimony, but their resilience illuminated the courtroom. Their love and grief resonated, reminding everyone of the young life snuffed out too soon. They shared memories, laughter, and tears, painting for the jury a vivid portrait of Amanda from childhood through her final days, thus reinforcing the reason this case had ignited their community. As both sides began to rest their cases, Moreno witnessed the emotional toll the trial placed on everyone involved. Surrounded by uncertainty, the stakes were clearer than ever. This was more than just a legal battle. It was a fight for acknowledgement, closure, and healing in a community fractured by loss. Finally, the jury prepared to deliver their verdict, a moment that would resonate far beyond the confines of the courtroom. The air thickened once again as they took their places. With anxious hearts and bated breaths, everyone held on to the remnants of hope, waiting for the words that would reverberate through Caldwell and beyond. The aftermath. In the fading light of an autumn evening, the people of Caldwell began to unfurl themselves from the tight bonds of anxiety that had gripped them during the trial. The verdict was delivered and echoed through the hallways of the small courthouse. Guilty. Ethan Granger was sentenced to life in prison without parole, a decision that reverberated throughout the courtroom, a bittersweet culmination of a journey mired in heartache and anger. As news spread, the town exhaled a collective breath. Yet, beneath that release swelled a mix of emotions. Joy at justice served was intertwined with the sorrow of Amanda's absence. Those who had once known her, her friends and peers, organized candlelight vigils and memorials in her honor. They adorned the park with colorful flowers and handwritten notes, each a tribute to the vibrant light Amanda had been in their lives. For her parents, Tom and Helen Foster, the victory in the courtroom felt like a Pyrrhic one. Although a sense of justice had been achieved, it could not fill the void left by their daughter's brutal death. They established the Amanda Foster Foundation, aimed at promoting awareness of victims' rights and mental health, hoping to harness their grief into a force that would protect other young lives. Their determination to prevent future tragedies underscored every event they organized, but the pain was always a companion, lurking beneath every speech and every initiative launched. Detective Sarah Moreno found herself navigating a changed landscape, one where the shadows of doubt still lingered. The case absorbed her completely. Each photograph taken and every desperate interview haunted her thoughts. Despite the closure the trial had brought, she was left reflecting on the fragility of life, the hidden struggles that people face daily. Caldwell appeared at first glance to be healing, yet beneath the surface, fractures remained. At the diner, the chatter felt lighter. Laughter hung more carefully in the air. But some table conversations returned to the specter of Amanda Foster's story, a reminder of both the strength of community bonds and the darkness that threaded its way through their world. As winter began to lay its quiet hand on Caldwell, the people found themselves carrying both sorrow and resolve. They gathered for coffee in the mornings, reminiscing about the girl who had touched their lives and inspired them to fight for a better tomorrow. Even as seasons changed, Amanda's memory burned brightly, a flame ignited by shared love and loss that transcended the night of the tragedy. In the depths of their collective grief, the community ultimately emerged more unified, fortified by their shared commitment to ensuring Amanda's light would not be extinguished entirely. It became clear that while the chapters of her life had come to a close, the ripple effect was only beginning. She remained a part of Caldwell's continuing story, a catalyst for change in a world that could so easily plunge into darkness again. As the last leaves fell and the nights grew long, hope began to weave itself into the fabric of the community, promising that Amanda's legacy would continue to shine, guiding them into the uncertain future ahead. Reflection. As the frost settled on the edges of Caldwell, a quiet introspection enveloped the town, its people walking a fine line between the scars of grief and the quiet strength born from trial and tribulation. The memory of Amanda Foster lingered in every corner her photographs hung in family homes. Her laughter echoed in the hearts of friends, and her story had evolved into a motif of resilience. Detective Sarah Moreno often found herself reflecting in the fall of the evening sun, moments after the echoes of laughter faded into the warmth of shared memories at local gatherings. It was a sobering reminder of the impermanence of life, a truth reflected in every interaction. For her, the investigation had been more than just about solving a crime. It had transformed into a personal journey, shedding light on the fragility of existence and the complexities behind each fleeting moment. At the heart of her thoughts was the notion that healing was seldom linear. Each individual carried their experiences like a heavy cloak that shaped who they were. Yet the collective journey had forged a stronger, more vigilant community. The scars left by Amanda's tragic death inspired her to remain vigilant and reflective, knowing that awareness and compassion were pivotal in combating the darkness that lingered. As the first snowflakes fell, blanketing the town in a layer of silence, Moreno felt a renewed understanding of her purpose. Justice had been served, but the work of honoring Amanda and ensuring the safety of her community continued. Reflection birthed not just sorrow, but hope as well. And in every shared story about Amanda, the promise of connection persisted. Life pulsed onward in Caldwell, entwined tightly with the memory of a girl who had once dreamed of making the world a better place, reminding everyone that from tragedy could emerge the strength to illuminate even the darkest paths.